today's podcast, well, I say podcast, but it's not actually a podcast, it's a broadcast. So I hope you all are doing well. How's everyone out there on this Saturday? There's a lot going on online right now. And so I want to talk today about one topic that is just kind of going viral online right now. But before I get into the topic, because you can see the title of this broadcast, it's Simone Biles, the hidden message behind traveling to see a man. And before I get into it, I want to just quickly go over a couple of housekeeping items. And the first thing I want to highlight is our 2024 trips, ladies and gentlemen. It's important that you know these are the places that we will be going to and visiting when we hit the new year. So for those of you who can see your screen, we are in Brazil in in February of 2024, also likely of November. Spain is the Memorial Day holiday weekend. We also have South Africa happening over the summer. Kenya happens a little bit at the tail end of the summer. And Vietnam is the end of October, beginning of November 1st. So for those of you who are interested in traveling, these are packages. So definitely email us at blacktravelersnetwork@gmail.com. This way you will find out more details about the upcoming trips. And for those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Black Travelers Network. So oftentimes when I come on, I am coming on to share highlights about what's happening as it pertains to the world of travel, as well as different things that pertain to different countries and the news. So I try to cover a multitude of topics, but our biggest goal on this channel is definitely to not only invite you into the world of Black travel around the world, but also to encourage you to travel with us. And so that's all I'm going to mention about the trip. I want to get into today's topic. And today's topic, we are talking about the hidden message behind traveling to see a man. So this is for those of you, I'm going to say ladies and gentlemen, because I know we have both men and women who watch, and I have my own kind of take on this. And so before I get into it, let me just briefly introduce it. If you have not been paying attention to social media, Simone Biles, her husband, who his name is Jonathan Owens, and he was recently interviewed by the Pivot podcast. Now they have a podcast, and they also have a YouTube channel called the Pivot podcast. And this channel, if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to take a moment to check out some of their content. You know, over time, I've watched and consumed some of their content. They have a really great channel. They speak to a number of different athletes. So you get to learn a lot more about the athletes and the behind the scenes of their life, what's really going on with some of them. So I encourage you, if you have not checked out the Pivot podcast, to go ahead and mosey on over there to check it out. They do have really good content, and I do like their channel. Now, recently, Jonathan Owens, who everyone by now should know, is Simone Biles' husband. He was recently on the Pivot podcast. They interviewed him, and I want you to take a listen to the important clip that came about that is really in a lot of ways controversial because people had a number of different reactions. Like, the internet has drugged this man so bad over his comments. And I just want to ground the discussion that I'm going to have about women traveling to men to visit them in the dating and courting and mating phase. But just to give it a little context, I know you can go online and actually see this on the Pivot podcast, but I would like for you to just have the audio experience and actually listen to the words he said. So let me just play this quick clip.
How in the hell did you pull Simone Biles? And I love this football talk, bro. I gotta get to him. I'm over here rubbing my knees trying to ask this.
Hey, Chad, I wanted to tell him, he's talking about being looked over. Now, when the right people look at you.
Yeah, that's,
you know what I'm saying?
How did you do that, bro?
Man, it's really how she pulled me, man. That's the question,
Oh,
man.
Lord Jesus. Now you with Freddie. Now it's back. now you
listen,
with
I'm gonna tell you, organic story, man. So I just got to Houston. I probably have been to Houston 7 months. I was single at the time, so I'm just living, being me and myself. And COVID had just hit, but I had just went to Arizona, and one of my boys are like, "Hey, man, you gotta check out this app, And I'm like, "Nah, I'll check it out." Like, what is it? It was called Raya at the time. So basically, it's like a dating app, but you have to go through certain like criteria to make sure that you're who you are. So literally have been on the app for a couple of days, man, and it's like she pops up, and I'm like, let me see who this is. Gymnastics. I ain't never, I never really paid attention to gymnastics, so it piqued my curiosity, So I'm like, okay, I'll see what's up. I swiped her, and it said we matched, so I'm just like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna see what's up. So I go do my workout, and I come back, and I get I had some likes on my Instagram, and I'm like, oh, this might be. I'm like, okay. So I see what's up, and then I still waited. I'm like, man, I'm gonna wait till I, take a shower and everything. Then I come back to my phone, and then she messages me on the app, like, hey, you know what I mean? And man, this gotta be fake. Like, I don't know. I didn't know who she was at the time, but like the first thing that I saw was that she just had a bunch of followers. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, she gotta be good. I promise you, I'm a real life story. When she won the Olympics, I was in college, and we didn't have NBC, we didn't have Olympic channels, and we're in camp. Late July, early August, so I'm not paying attention to, so I never would have had a moment to where I would have watched,
Jonathan, I'm gonna let you finish your story, man. Continue.
But like I was saying, man, she messaged me. This was like a Tuesday, and we were texting back and forth, and then we hung out Friday, man. And we couldn't do much as COVID happened. Everything was shut down. So she came through down to Houston. She lived in the suburbs, so she had to drive about 45 minutes to me. Then the rest is history, man. So
you was really the catch in.
I always say the men the catch, man. I always say we the catch, man.
Yeah, so she really booked you.
She did, though.
Is what you're saying.
Because I was fighting it.
So in truth, if I say this out loud, was Jonathan Owens ain't really want Simone Biles, is what you're saying.
At the time, I'm not gonna say that.
That's what you're saying.
I was afraid. I was afraid to commit. I'm like, man, this is my third year. I'm trying to, I'm like, it's kind of early. But, like I said, man, it happened when you least expect it. And we hung out, man. It was like we hit it off instantly.
And so at that point, the dragging began on social media, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my gosh. I'm like, part of me just feels so bad for this couple because, the internet has no mercy, and people have been making some really valid points, So here's what I want to talk about as it pertains to this. Let me just get into what I have to say about this, because I have a lot to say about this. So when it comes to traveling to men, I've done this before plenty of times. And what I hate about this whole narrative that is being spoken about when it comes to women traveling to see the men that they are interested in or the men that they are dating is how it ends up being framed. In other words, the whole story about why a woman is going to travel, it's not, unfortunately, is not being shared. And I think the why is actually really important, because the thing of it is that, you know, in these kinds of interviews, we only get a glimpse at so many things. But when it comes to her husband telling the story about how they hooked up, you know, he's sitting in this interview boosting himself up like she came up when she got with him. And it's like, dude, she could have had anybody. She is a huge celebrity in the sports world, outside of the sports world. I mean, she is Simone Biles, one of the most historic figures in women's gymnastics, a sport that historically has locked out Black people. I mean, like, let's just be honest. Like, for the longest, the sport was completely white and Asian. So you had a lot of the gymnastics that was dominated by Russian and Romanians, and then came China, and you know, now you bring in more diversity with the United States. I love women's gymnastics. I've been following it since I was a little girl, and so she's the queen of a sport that historically has been a sport for young girls. And so I think that's important to kind of understand, like, mindset when it comes to Simone Biles. So I kind of cut her a lot of slack because I look at how she grew up and where she grew up, and her whole entire life was about gymnastics. So when it comes to certain things, when we're talking about love, relationships, and men and marriage and all of that kind of thing, she kind of game goofy. You know, that's the term. She's a little bit game goofy. And yes, she was choosing up on her now husband, Jonathan Owens. She chose him. And I don't even know that I feel like there's anything completely wrong with it, because I think there's a delicate balance. Because if you're a woman and you're always waiting to be chosen, a lot of times the men who are going to choose you are the men who you have no interest in, none whatsoever. And so I feel like it's less about choosing, and it's more that delicate balance is positioning yourself to be by the men who you are most likely have interest in. So that's sort of my whole take on her choosing her husband. But I understand Simone, because I was once younger and I was game goofy as well. Don't put a good looking man in my face, because just like her, I was like, oh my God, he's so fine. You know what I mean? Now it's different, because really good looking guys nowadays don't really grab me how they did when I was in my early 20s. It just doesn't do anything for me. I'm more, at this phase and stage in my life, I'm more of a substance person. And when it comes to looks, I tend to lean more on men who are handsome, you know, and handsome comes in many different forms. Handsome to me is more of that masculine type of look. So I'm not really into the pretty boys or the men who women are just like, oh my God, he's so fine. Like, that's not really my type. But again, I've gotten there with time and age. But what I hate about the narrative is that of women traveling to see a man or traveling to visit a man, is that it doesn't tell the full story. Now, her husband on this podcast talked about how she travel 45 minutes to see him. And, you know, for me, like, I've traveled way more than 45 minutes. I have no shame in admitting this at all. Like, I done hopped on flights, I've traveled hours, I've driven, like, and the truth is it could have been any number of reasons why she traveled to see Jonathan Owens when they first started dating. Why I traveled to see men, again, it was for a number of reasons. Sometimes I traveled because I had more flexibility in my schedule. I was making quite a bit of money and I could move around way more easily, and the men that I was dating or seeing at that time may not have been able to have as much flexibility in their schedule, or some of them may not have had the resources that I had that allowed me to just get up and travel. So that was one reason. I've also traveled to visit men so that I could control how long I stayed and when I left. That's another important thing that people don't talk about. Just because you're interested in a guy doesn't mean you want to spend all your time with him, you know? So I would travel because of that. I traveled to a man because I didn't want him to know where I was living or where I lived, you know? So much of my life, my adult life, I've lived by myself and I've traveled by myself. And so because I would travel so much and so often by myself, it was kind of like a safety thing for me in terms of not necessarily wanting any man that I just started dating to know exactly my whereabouts at any given time, because I never wanted somebody to just show up at my spot unannounced. Like, that was a problem for me. So because of that, I would oftentimes travel to them as well. Sometimes I wanted to get out of the city. You know, when I had a career that took me all over the country, some cities were just lame. I did not like the cities that I was assigned to work in. And so if I met a guy and he just so happened to live in a different city, I would travel to him because I just didn't like the vibe or the energy of the city that I was in. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be in a different environment. So I would travel willingly and gladly to him. And, you know, we all grown, at least here on this broadcast, you know, so I'm going to be very transparent and I'm not going to lie on here because we are all grown. Sometimes I've traveled to get some good D. You know, good D can be hard to find. And when you find it, and it might be located on the other side of the country, you know, I'm one of those people, hey, honey, I did not care. I would, how far of a drive is it? Oh, it's too far? Let me check the flight prices. You know what I mean? Like, because it was less about just the D and more about the actual experience itself. And so I would travel for a good experience. And, you know, at that time, that might have been all that I wanted. And I didn't want to have anything more complicated than my purpose, which was to get some good D. So, you know, I say all of that to say there are a number of reasons why women can and will travel to a man. Not to mention, you know, you need to, if you're looking at a man as being, of having some type of potential of being in a serious relationship with or married to him, you need to actually spend time with him before making a serious commitment to be in a relationship. And I always felt like it was worth investing on the front end to go see him, to see if there was a match, to see if we were compatible by, you know, spending time together, sharing the same space versus waiting, talking on the phone, texting and all of that, and investing months, if not years of my time, only to find out I should have spent more time with him in the beginning to figure out, was this a man that was worth my time? So I'm gonna speak up on this one for Simone Biles, because there could have been any number of reasons why she traveled to see Jonathan Owens when they first got together. And I just feel like in the interview, the way he kind of boasted about, yeah, she came 45 minutes, she drove 45 minutes to see me, is just kind of like positioning him as being the prize, when ultimately, like, she could have did that for any number of reasons that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with her. And it's important because with lots of people meeting online nowadays, like through dating apps and like just social media in general, it makes sense that people are going to travel to see each other. You know what I mean? Like, this is the society that we live in. This is the times we are living in at this moment. And sometimes it may be one person traveling more than the other. And I can honestly say, in our society right now, you have a lot of successful Black women who have the means, the resources, and the time to actually put forth that energy and put forth that effort, that if they are interested in getting to know a man in a different state or in a different city, that they will make that investment and travel to see him. But the hidden message that some men, ladies, may receive by us traveling to see them is exactly the conclusion that Jonathan Owens obviously took from Simone, one of the biggest superstars in sports. He actually took her coming to him as being that he is the prize. And that is one of those hidden messages that, you have to be very mindful and thoughtful of, can come across potentially if you put forth that level of effort to see, to visit, and to travel to that man. I had no idea. Now, I listed all of my reasons why I traveled to men over the years, but don't you know, the men that I was dating during those times, the minute I pulled back and stopped traveling to see them, I tended to get one of three reactions. And I'm going to highlight these reactions. The first reaction was, there were a couple of instances when the men ended up getting upset that I wouldn't come to visit them anymore. Like, I had developed this kind of habit and pattern and kind of built up this expectation that I'd go visit them. And when I pulled it back, some of them got upset, like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? You must have somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, people kind of naturally go to that. So that was one reaction. Another reaction that I got, there were other instances where they wanted to come and visit me when I stopped going to them. It was at that moment when they would put forth the effort to say, okay, you're not really coming to see me, now I'm gonna come to see you. And it was important for me to see that that was the natural next step for them. If I can't come, or if I choose not to come, you're interested enough in me, invested enough into building on what we have, that you're wanting to come to visit me. Not just that they wanted to put forth the effort, but they would actually put forth the effort. And I loved seeing that, because it helped me to understand better that, that this is somebody who's actually seriously interested in me. So that was important for me to see. And the final reaction that I remember getting when I pulled back is there were also some instances where the relationship that I had with the guy that I was just so happened to be visiting was just our relationship just was completely over when I stopped putting forth the effort to go visit and to travel to them. Believe it or not, this is the part, ladies, that I was always pleased to see, because it let me know who I was really dealing with and whether or not they were really feeling me like that. And that is what I will say is the move that you must make if you are traveling to see a man regularly or, from time to time. Some of us prefer to go to the man. I'm one of those women. I prefer to go to him because I'm very particular about my time. I don't want to give any more time than what I want to give, and I like to be in control of my time. And so I just kind of have always preferred it. And I'll acknowledge that, I don't have any problem or hesitation acknowledging that that's my preference, right? But even if I prefer, or you ladies who shall listen to this, even if you prefer to travel to a man, at some point, I'd say sooner rather than later, it's important to pull it back and stop traveling to see him and see what he does. Like, actions speak way louder than words. You need to know where you stand with this particular man that you're investing your time into traveling to see, your resources, because it's not cheap to go from one place to the next to visit a person. Like, you need to know if he's willing to make the same level or greater investment in you, and whether or not he wants to see you as much as you want to see him. So that's really important. And so, does he instantly work to come visit you? That's the question you need to be asking. If he does, then you need him to do that, because that's an investment that he is making in your relationship. Or does he let the relationship fizzle out? So many women want to stay in denial about who they're really with and whether or not he's really feeling you. But this is the real answer that you actually need to know. Is he willing to come to you? Is he willing? And beyond, is he willing? Does he actually put forth the steps to make it happen? That is so, so important. Because at the end of the day, how we as women view traveling to a man is obviously completely different than how they view us traveling to see them. Like, I never considered the fact that me traveling to visit a man that I was genuinely interested in, or we were dating, I never thought that came across as being thirsty or desperate. And I don't know why, it just didn't occur to me that it could be even interpreted that way. And I say that because I have all of these reasons why it made the most sense for me to go to them. So I never looked at it that way, because thirsty and desperate is like the furthest thing. Anybody who knows me knows that that's like the farthest thing from who I am. But it can be interpreted that way. And it can be interpreted by men that they are, as Jonathan Owens proved, that they're the prize. Which I really don't know how. I still don't understand how you get to that conclusion. But men and women are very different in how we see the world. This is what's very, very clear. So Simone Biles' husband has gotten drugged throughout the internet for this, for saying how he feels men are the prize. And You know, oh my gosh, I could say so many things. But I think the biggest thing that a lot of people are commenting on with regards to his interview is just the fact that I don't know, I think is the fact that he stated that he didn't know who she was. Like, that has rubbed so many people the wrong way that they went to pulling his old tweets to prove that he's a liar. And my only thing about him saying that he didn't know who she was is that back in 2017, Simone Biles actually took the time to interview Tom Brady. You know, this is Jonathan Owens' field. Tom Brady is the GOAT in the NFL, okay? When it comes to being a quarterback, he is the GOAT in his position. And he was so excited to meet Simone Biles back in 2017. He talked about how she was the GOAT, you know, in her sport. And he was just grinning from ear to ear, so excited, so happy. And so I say all that to say, like, there's no way, if Tom Brady knew who she was back in 2017, you cannot pay me to believe that her husband didn't know who she was. And this is why the internet is dragging him, because it's like there's this idea that he's trying to, in a subtle, covert way, trying to dim her light, which there's an argument to be made that is what he's doing. I'm not saying definitively that's what it is, but I'm saying I can see the argument. It makes a lot of sense, and it's something she should strongly consider as happening. But I say all that to say, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and I will close with this. On our trips, when we travel and we meet in the world's most beautiful destinations and have amazing experiences around the world, we talk about different topics that are happening in the world. We talk about, you know, who we are as people, what's happening in the news. You know, we talk about our history, our past, our family. We talk about everything under the sun, because it's people who are traveling together and networking and, you know, just kind of getting to know each other is the foundation of the experience. And so on this platform, Black Travelers Network, here on YouTube, although we discuss travel, I'm going to expand the topics of discussion, because that's how we do when we actually travel and network and when we get to know each other as a community. And so if you have not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to like this video, ladies and gentlemen. And so until next time, check out the lives, check out any of our old episodes, and I'm going to populate this so this can show up not under just the live tab, but it can show up under our most recent videos. So I hope you enjoyed, and as I said, until next time.